The time has come, my friends. We're talking about the Supergoop Protec Tint SPF 50 Daily SPF Tint. And I'm going to be doing today's video a little bit different because I want to talk about this product. If you've ever watched any of my other Supergoop videos, you're probably going to know where this is going to go. But I want to show you really how I'm going to use this and think of this product and let you know my thoughts on it as well. So if you're interested in getting, I was going to say the piping hot tea, but I'm kind of late with this video. But if you're interested in getting somebody who really appreciates and knows sunscreens take on this, then stick around and we'll get right into it. So like I said, this is the new Protectant from Supergoop. It comes in 14 shades and I have the shade, what do I have? 22W, so 22 warm. And this is a hybrid sunscreen, which is actually, I feel like kind of unique for them. And they did kind of make an effort to say that it's hybrid because a lot of times on their marketing, they will definitely like go out of their way to be like, this is a mineral sunscreen. And it does have mineral filters. It's got 13.58% zinc oxide, but it also has octosalate, and they made a pretty good deal of showing that it has both. And I actually really appreciate that. And I think it's gonna be one of the like distinguishing factors of this for why I like it. But I'm gonna get into that a little bit later. So the way I'm gonna start it is like I always do in my videos. I am gonna be using my 1/4 teaspoon and I'm gonna be putting this product in there. And then we're gonna see, because let me just tell you, I'm not gonna be using it all. I'm gonna be wasting a lot of product because the whole point of this video is this is not a sunscreen. This is makeup, this is a tint. It also has SPF in it. So think of it like that. Think of it as makeup with SPF. Don't think of it as SPF also as your makeup. I mean, you can do that, and I know probably 95% of the people who use it are gonna use it like that, but my videos are meant to be kind of educational for you guys and show you that, no, this is actually just makeup. So, like I said, I'm gonna be putting it in and then I will show you how I apply it. I'm very surprised though that this is supposed to be a warm shade, because even when I'm looking at it like in direct natural light, it looks pretty neutral to me, which is fine by me. Like I don't consider myself to have warm undertones, but I always find Supergoop shades kind of a little weird. So I already have my base of sunscreen on right now, and I have just like a little bit of mascara, but I don't have any other makeup on. Whoa, as I'm holding it up, it's starting to move. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to apply this as I would if I were putting makeup on my face for the day. And I wanna show you what that kind of looks like versus me putting the full 1/4 teaspoon on. So I'm just gonna start dabbing. Some, and you could use a brush, you could use a sponge, you could use your hands. I am gonna use all of the above. So on one side, I will be using my sponge. I'm just gonna tell you, it's gonna soak up a lot of the product. And then on this side, I'm gonna be using a brush. All right, let me take a close up. I obviously did not blend it properly in some places. Okay, so you saw how much I used. Now also you saw, well, you can see how much is left in the 1/4 teaspoon. I used like just the top layer, and I think this is a really, really beautiful like light coverage look. It doesn't look like I have really anything on my face as far as makeup goes. Maybe a little bit of color, but it's sitting very nicely, sitting on my skin, kind of not, I would say 100% sunken in, there you go. But also not just sitting, like it doesn't feel like it's gonna move about too much. So that would be what I would use for like a pretty low coverage, I would say like light coverage amount of foundation. If I wanted to build it up, I could do a little bit more, so I'm gonna show you what that looks like. And when you use a brush, you're definitely going to be getting a lot more coverage than with the sponge. The sponge is soaking up a ton of the product. So I'm gonna try it this time with a brush all the way across my face. So this is the Protectant Daily SPF Tint, SPF 50 Sunscreen Skin Tint with Hyaluronic Acid and Ectoin. Retails for $44, which is pretty standard for Supergoop, and it comes in 1.18 fluid ounces, which is 35 milliliters. So still a pretty small amount because normal sunscreens are 1.7 fluid ounces. You do have 14 shades, and like I said, I have the 22W, which is about, I think, the fourth lightest shade. They say that it has a natural finish, effortless, lightweight skin tint meets powerful SPF 50, light buildable coverage, natural finish for immediately smooth, even-looking skin. And like I said before, you have 13.58% zinc oxide and then also 5% octinoxate and then 5% octisalate. Okay, guys, so I think it looks pretty gorgeous. Like, let's look up close. It doesn't look like I have makeup on, which is, you know, one of the best parts of an SPF or like a skin tint. It does tend to kind of, I wouldn't say like sink in 100%. Like, you're not gonna have that like no transfer kind of feel to it, which I don't think it's claiming to have, especially with that natural radiant finish. I've got a nice glow to my face, but it's nothing overpowering. So for me, this is actually one of the more perfect kind of finishes. And it doesn't look super heavy. It doesn't feel heavy on my face, but I also used that much. So if I were probably using this as the like finger length method, it was probably 1, maybe 2 finger lengths, which is getting me to the point of this video. I've said this before, I said it at the beginning of the video, I say it with most Supergoop videos. Supergoop pains me. And I've talked about this in a reel, I've talked about this over and over. It pains me because they market themselves as a sunscreen brand. They make only sunscreens, but yet 90%, I would say, of their products are not meant to be used in the amount that you should be using to get the full amount of protection. So like the SPF 50 that's labeled here, if you're using 1 or 2 finger lengths of this, you're probably, I mean, I'm not gonna even speculate how much SPF protection you're getting because it will depend, but you're probably getting half. I just said I'm not gonna speculate and then I did. But what I'm trying to say is you're not gonna be getting the full SPF coverage or protection. And that is kind of what pains me. A lot of the times I feel like Supergoop, you know, they have an obligation as a sunscreen company to really educate their users on how to use their new products. And they don't do a great job of it. Now, I want to tell you a few differences that I noticed. So on the back of the bottle, which is what most people are going to read, or they're going to read the box if they have it, it says for the directions, apply generously and evenly 15 minutes before sun exposure. Blend onto skin with fingertips and build to desired coverage. Reapply at least every 2 hours. Very, very standard language, very standard for a sunscreen. But now when I look at how to use it on the Sephora website, it says, use as part of your daily beauty routine, which is a bit ambiguous because for some people that means sunscreen, or for others that means makeup. Apply with your fingers, a sponge, or a brush, okay? After completing your skincare routine and applying your favorite primer, smooth protectant generously and evenly, blending to your desired coverage. Allow 30 seconds for product to set. Apply another layer for additional coverage if desired. Okay, those are all like somewhat better than what they have on the bottle, but the last one is a really important one. It says, if this is the only SPF in your skincare routine, apply generously and evenly 15 minutes before sun exposure. And that is kind of where they leave it. Now, the reason I say that's the most important is because they do call out if this is your only SPF. But what I wish they would have said, and I know they're never going to say this because then their product does not work, but what they should have said is if this is your only SPF, use 1/4 teaspoon. It's that simple. And I have seen another brand recently, I'm trying to remember what sunscreen it was, where they called out the exact amount to use. They said, apply 1/4 teaspoon to your neck and your face. And I was like, oh, praise the Lord. Like they finally did it. They called out the exact amount because all this generous amount bullshit is what it is. It's bullshit. It doesn't give you a quantifiable amount. And so one person's generous amount could be a very thin finger length and another person's is 2 finger lengths. But regardless, both of those finger lengths with this is not SPF 50. So in my opinion, again, I've said this so many times, I feel like a broken record now. It's a bit of false advertising and they know that if somebody were to use this in the correct amount, a quarter of a teaspoon, it would look insane, and no one's going to do that, and this product does not work. So they are not specific, and they use, you know, a lot of like fancy language to kind of snake around the point that you need more to make it work. So all of that said, people always ask me, and they always complain, not always, but sometimes, that I am using too much sunscreen, and I kind of wanted to get into that a little bit. I know this video is more about the tint, which if I'm looking at it as makeup, I love it. And I didn't even get to the part where I was going to say one of the reasons that I really love it is that it's hybrid, because that means I don't have to worry about what sunscreen I put on first. If I want to put a mineral one on first, or if I want to put a chemical, I know that it's probably not going to interact too badly. I mean, I'm layering it, I'm not mixing it, but I know that like I don't really have to worry, because oftentimes if it's just mineral, I kind of want to put a mineral sunscreen on first, just because it can disrupt the active ingredients if you're mixing, or if they end up getting mixed. But I like the fact that it's hybrid, so that really works well for me. But what I was going to tell you guys about why I use a quarter of a teaspoon is because when sunscreens are tested, they are tested at the density of 2 milligrams of sunscreen per square centimeter of your skin. Okay, that means not probably a lot to most people. And so the reason that people have come up with the quarter of a teaspoon is because that is usually even an overestimation, but it's going to actually get you that 2 milligrams of sunscreen per centimeter of your face, or excuse me, per square centimeter of your face. And that's what you need to get the actual labeled SPF on there. So it is very scientific, and most people are not going to measure how many square centimeters they have on their face so that they get the right amount. And I just think it's usually much more beneficial to use your quarter of a teaspoon than the finger length, especially for a product like this. If you're using just like a normal chemical sunscreen, 2 or 3 finger lengths is probably going to be fine. But most people do underestimate, and so once again, we end up back at measuring how much sunscreen we're putting on our face. So all of that to say, what are my final thoughts on the sunscreen? Do I like it? Well, first of all, it's not a sunscreen, it's makeup. So does this live in my makeup, or does it live in my sunscreen? It lives in my makeup drawer with my other foundations. That's what I look at it for. I think it's a really, really nice light coverage, not super heavy, not too glowy, not too matte sunscreen, or excuse me, I did it again, makeup. I think this is going to work for a lot of skin types. Like even as I've talked, it's been 5 or 10 minutes, it hasn't set in. Like I still can touch it and it will come off on a white shirt, but it just looks so, so healthy. Like I think it looks really, really wonderful on my skin, and I think it's going to work for a variety of skin types. As a sunscreen, I will never ever wear it like that. And I will try to link it if I have it. I think I do. It's a reel or a YouTube short where I applied the full quarter of a teaspoon. I'm not going to do it today because let me just tell you, it doesn't work. But as a makeup, it works. As a sunscreen, it's not really anything. So, I hope that helps. I hope you enjoy it. I hope if you are going to test this out, you use it properly. You know my channel is here for that. I always demonstrate the correct, and I still use air quotes because, you know, it depends on your face and what you're doing, but you should be using a quarter of a teaspoon. So I hope that helped you, and I'm always here to give you the hot goss on new sunscreens and makeup, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!